Hi everybody, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and today we are painting our April watercolor calendar spread. Ah! This project is super fun. I feel like it totally embodies April with the raindrops and the green and the flowers, and it's just fun and loose and kind of messy, but it still creates this really like visually stunning painting. So I'm really excited to share with you how to do it.
Also, it's important because April's, my birth month.
Yeah.
So this is the most important one.
This is the most important one.
Yeah.
That's why I made sure it was extra beautiful.
Thank you. I could tell.
And actually, within here, there's a tiny portrait of you
I'm excited. Yeah.
just for you.
Thank you.
Okay, so we're going to be doing this project in 5 steps. So, our very first step is we're going to do a general kind of sketch of our composition. Our second step is we are going to put in the background. Our third step is we're going to do a lot of wet on wet textures and layers. So, you can see like there's chaos here, but it adds to the painting. So, like, really have fun with it. Step 4 is we're going to paint in our flowers and our leaves, kind of giving them a bit of dimension. And step 5 is if you want to do some like water drops, we're going to put those in.
And step 6, my portrait. Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right.
Of course.
Of course.
Um, I'm going to show you guys how to sketch a flower just so you guys know when I do this on my own calendar right here. I'm going to do a very similar composition, but I think I'm going to actually make this flower a little bit bigger, just so then that the water drop is a bit more like pronounced. Does that make sense?
Sounds great.
But it's up to you. This is your painting and we're drawing and sketching, so you can change it however you see fit. So before we get started, let's do our oath, and then I'm going to go over drawing this flower and then we'll get into painting. So if you can raise your right hand and repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
I promise to have fun.
Okay, I have a scratch piece of paper here. And so what we are doing is we are going to be painting a flower kind of at its angle turning away from us. And the reason why is because of our perspective of these leaves and flowers is kind of like angled, right? It's tricky to draw things because our brain loves to put everything bird's eye view flat. So when you think of a hand, you think of a hand that's doing this. But the reality is we see it moves in three-dimensional space. And a lot of times hands are kind of coming at us. That's why it's foreshortened. They're turning away. They're holding something, all of these kinds of things that put them in the different position. So then what you have is your brain fighting you between what your eyes are actually seeing. So what you essentially have to do is just be like, brain, just go away for a minute. Let me just observe what my eyes are seeing and just recreate what my eyes are seeing. That's it. That's really like the base of being able to draw and paint, is just allowing to observe, like observing what you're doing and then recreating that. Now, recreating that takes skills, and that's why we're here to improve those skills so then you can get to a point where you are painting and drawing what you're seeing. Okay? So for the flowers, if we were to do an overhead view, right, it would be a circle. But since this flower is turning away from us, that circle is going to turn more into a disc or an oval. So that circle is now going to be turned on its side, which is going to turn to something like this. Okay? Now, the center of the flower on a bird's eye view is right in the middle. But here, if it's turning away from us, it's going to kind of be in the middle, but kind of like on this side. And depending on how turned it is, like if I were to see a flower more from its side, that disc shape is actually, or that oval shape is going to get thinner. And then from there, you're just going to see like the tiny bit center. You see that?
Uh-huh.
Once you have your oval and then you know where your center is, this is where we can start putting in petals, and you can follow the shape of the oval in order to help you know where your petals go. So if this is my center here, then I'm going to have petals that kind of come up like this. Now this is more like a daisy. So you can see that where the petal meets the center, it's a little bit thinner, and then it gets thicker, and then it gets thinner again. Okay? And don't be afraid to let the edges of your petals have an uneven edge to them like this. Our brain likes to do this a lot because that's like simple.
Mm-hmm.
But really, we see that there's like a texture element too. And then when you get to the bottom here, you're just going to keep following that shape. Again, remember that the petal where it meets the center is thin, and then it's going to widen out like so. Okay. And then from there, if you want, you do little detail lines. I sometimes like just thin little detail lines, either coming from the top or the bottom, really kind of give it a little bit more shape. Okay. And then from there, stems kind of come out through the center, right? So then wherever my center is, I know that that's where my stem would meet. Of course, the stem is going to be behind the flower. So I'm just going to do an invisible line. So I lift up my pencil, and then here is where I would draw the stem.
Nice.
Just like that.
Perfect.
So this is probably the biggest drawing element of our painting. And you can see here on the left-hand side, I thought like, okay, I'll do one that's open and facing. I actually like really dislike this flower. So I'm not going to put it in, but you can't. So what I'm saying is like, once you understand this shape and how it can move in space, either becoming more thin or like bird's eye view, all of that kind of stuff. It gives you options of how you want your flowers to show up within this composition. The other thing to think about is if you wanted a flower that's just starting to bloom. So this is a flower on its side that has fully bloomed. If you're going and doing like a like the bud still hasn't fully opened up, then that's a different shape. So if this is my stem, and let's say here is my bud, then like, well, I guess that's just a bud right there, but it could be like maybe one little petal, like little petals are coming out of the side. You know what I mean? Like it's just starting to open up. And this can be different stages too. So here's one that's opened up a little bit more. You see what I mean? So you have to think about like when it's a fresh baby little bud, it's tight. And then through its stages of growth, it does da, 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 da. Okay? So anywhere in between is acceptable and what we would see. So don't be afraid of allowing your flowers to have variation. And this kind of thing would be true if it's on its side, if it's facing you, if it's facing away from you. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. That is our drawing lesson. Good job, everybody. Now let's get to painting. So I'm going to, well, let's leave this up here so you guys can see it in case you need to. I cheated. Okay. So now I'm going to think about where do I want my flower to be?
Wait, important PSA, but the hole at the top. Or
Oh
you're
my
going to be
gosh,
painting upside down.
Michael.
Yeah, but the hole at the top.
Good call. Whenever you're painting in this watercolor calendar, hole at the top.
Or you'll have an upside down month.
Or you will have an upside down month. So to sketch my composition, I'm going to want to decide how big I want my flower to go or my oval. And this is going to be my main flower. Now this is the one I'm going to pay attention to the most. You might have other flowers in your paintings, but those are going to be more gestural, more loose, and more messy. So I want my flower, I'm going to have it be a little bit bigger than what I initially drew on my first draft. And so this is probably, I don't know, like 3 inches, I would say. And I do this because my hand is 6 inches, almost exactly, which is so helpful.
Mm-hmm.
You guys measure your hand, okay? And then you always have a form of measurement right by you. Okay. Then I'm going to define my center. So we're going to put it in the middle. It's kind of like a donut a little bit. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Now after do my center, now I'm going to start doing my petals. So you can start anywhere. It doesn't really matter, just from the center. You're going to start thin, go out, do a jaggedy edge, and bring it back. Same thing over and over. Boop, 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 boop. And also the nice thing about sketches is like that's what they are, is they're sketches. So if you do something that you're just like, ooh, I do not like that petal, change it. I will say that for me, I really utilize sketches as just like a base. And if there's something I don't like, I'll fix it when I paint it. I won't erase a million times and redraw, because that can then start to mess with the quality of your watercolor paper. Okay. And then this is interesting here too that I want to call out. These are kind of very similar spaced. And then I have this weird space right here, which actually is not terrible because in flowers, things like that happen all of the time. Nature is random. And so like things can just like move. Maybe a petal got eaten off by something. Who knows? But for me and my painting, I can kind of like have control over this world that I'm creating. So if I don't care for that space, I can move it. I can do another petal. Like you can change it. I think it would bother me having this big space. So then I can mentally say, oh, maybe that's where I'll put a little water drop. So it will kind of activate that space. Or I can do another petal, or I can make petals thicker if I think one extra petal will make it too full. You know what I'm saying? Like you kind of just problem solve your way through it. I'm going to make the two petals a little bit bigger because if I were to do another petal in there, that would feel very dense.
Claustrophobic.
Yeah. And I don't like this guy right there. So I'm just going to, there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to want the stem to kind of come out this way, like so. And then if I want to do another flower, maybe like just kind of starting to bloom, I can do that there. Maybe a hint of more flowers there. That's pretty much it.
Perfect.
That's it. And you don't really need to erase this because we're going to be doing a lot of dark values around it. So now we're going to move on to step 2. We're going to put in our background. So basically, I'm going to take a brush and I'm going to want to wet the entire paper. So make sure your tape is sealed all the way around and that your dot hole is at the top. And then use a larger brush to wet the entire area. And you're going to be avoiding the flowers. So I'm just kind of like going around. And it's so interesting because right after I painted this one, I was just like, darn, I really wish I would have made that main flower bigger. And now that I have made the main flower bigger, I'm like, do I like that? You know, it's funny how you just kind of like always question it. But sometimes, and it's totally normal to have these feelings of insecurity. Did I just ruin it? Is this going to mess up? Da 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 da. I'm not good at this. Like all of this kind of stuff. It's kind of stressful. So sometimes I just have to say, you know what? It's going to be fine. It's a piece of paper.
Yeah.
Like, what's the worst that can happen? Oh no, the flower's a little bit too big.
Right.
Like, that's it. These are the stakes we're talking about here. So I don't want you to stress. Okay, now when it's nice and wet, I'm going to start putting in, let's put in like a bit of phthalo mixed with a tiny bit of undersea. So it's kind of like this bluish turquoisey color. That's going to be on the right-hand side as if that's sky. If you want it to appear like it's a storm, you can use like indigo or something like that, or like a gray. And then on the left-hand side, working quickly, I'm going to just start picking up colors of undersea. Phthalo. Ooh, too much phthalo. We'll do Q gold right on top of that. And again, I'm just touching it in. And because this is all wet, the color is spreading and I'm letting it. I'm not trying to control it. I want it to go all the way around. And it's just going to bleed everywhere. And that's okay. If you accidentally paint into your petals, we have bleed proof white that we will be using. So it is not the end of the world. And then I'm going to start mixing in like indigo or lamp black with my green to get darker greens here because we want there to be a lot of different colors and values. So if you're doing this and all of your greens are the exact same green, throw in a stroke of yellow, throw in a stroke of blue, throw in a stroke of orange even, why not? If you have salt and you want to do some salt texture, throw that in. I'm going to actually sprinkle some bleed proof white here in a minute. And then I'm using my long round 10 to kind of go in between and shape my petals. Very similar to kind of negative space painting, where I'm painting around my subject in order to form my subject. And then now I'm doing like thinner brush strokes using a really dark value. Again, just trying to switch up the values. So if I'm squeezing my eyes and I'm noticing that there's no light and dark spots, like it's all kind of even, then I mentally know that I need to switch up my values a little bit. And if you want to lift up your board and kind of control where that water is going to go, like if you want to keep all of the value on the left, then you would just lift up your paper on the right hand side and you see how that's moving all of it to the left.
Hmm.
Or if you don't like that, you want to even it out, you can go back and forth, up and down. Okay, while it's wet, I'm going to take some blue proof white. And just for fun, just sprinkle some. And this is also where you can kind of like put in some petals. Boo boo. It's okay that if it kind of bleeds. Maybe there's another hint of flower over here. Maybe there's another hint of flower here. And this color is just going to bleed and fuzz out in the green. That's okay. I want that. Okay, we're going to keep adding like lines and textures. I'm going to switch to my liner brush. And again, using the same kind of mixtures of Undersea green, Q gold, Phthalo blue, Indigo. I'm going to start to put in stems. If you want to start doing some like leaves or something, you can. Now remember, this is still pretty wet. So whatever I'm putting in, it's not going to stay sharp. We'll go back in later and kind of like shape,
Tighten up.
tighten it. And then let's say you just are like, oh, I kind of want to add a little bit more blue phthalo over here in my sky. Add it. Why not? Don't be afraid of the bloom. Don't be afraid of wonky textures. This is one of those projects where like it's going to look great. The other thing is, let's say you really like bokeh. Do you guys know what bokeh is? So like, let's say that there's, a Christmas tree light and it's in the background, and it's out of focus. You're going to see a lot of circles that are just different values of light. And that's what we call bokeh, is basically these reflected light circles that come from the lens. It's a very common in photography and it's beautiful in painting. So let's say that you're like, I love bokeh. You can just start lifting out circles while it's damp. And you can do that kind of across if you wanted to do kind of a bokeh feel. Now, I did not originally do that in my first one. However, the value on my right hand, or my first painting initially in this area, is very light, that it's creating that illusion of light. Do you see that?
Hmm.
Where this one went a little bit darker, that color went, I did a couple extra layers and I did that first one. And so I still want there to be a strong sense of light. So I'm going to use bokeh as a tool to kind of create this sense of light, even though those values are darker. Does that make sense?
Hmm.
Now, for me, how I like to do bokeh is while my painting is damp, I just use my brush to lift out circles. Some people like to put like a dime or a nickel in a paper towel and stamp. That works great. I don't care for that one. I think it lifts up too much color. But that's just me, because the bothersome thing about this technique is you kind of have to do it over and over again, because since you're doing it when it's damp, the paint will seep back in. You know what I'm saying?
Hmm. If you get really into camera nerdery, you can start to distinguish different companies' lenses, different time periods of lenses based on the shape of those little bokeh balls.
That's so
Isn't
cool.
that crazy?
Yeah. Okay, so I decided to add some bokeh on mine. Okay. And you can do bokeh on the left-hand side too. You would, you can throw it in. The reason why I like this method is I feel like it's the most natural in terms of how the color lifts out. I have also tried it where the painting is dry and then I lift the color out, but that actually leaves a hard line along the edge of the circle that I don't care for. So that's why I do it this way. But there is definitely more than one way to go about painting something. So if you found a way that works for you, great. Okay. Now I'm going to take my liner. I'm going to put in, you can do like grass textures or leaves, still using that same kind of, phthalo, undersea, Q gold. And what we're trying to create here is just different chunks of color and value. Again, that is how we make it feel like there's layers of leaves and flowers and all of this kind of stuff. And we are still on the damp part of our paper, so a lot of these marks are going to blend out, and I am okay with that. Okay. Now, I'm also going to want to start to go in with my liner and kind of paint in between these petals and make sure I'm shaping them how I want to shape them. Just kind of filling in. Maybe some of them are close enough together that they won't have space. Okay. I feel like this area is really blue. I want some more gold. So I'm just going to take straight Q gold, introduce that to some parts, kind of warm the area up. Now you want to make sure that the area around your white daisy, wherever you're going to want to put the water drop, is nice and dark. And the reason for that is because we're going to use bleed proof white to create the illusion of the water drop. And the contrast between a dark background and the water drop is what's going to make it pop. So if you're painting a water drop on like a medium value background, you're not going to see that very well.
Mm.
Okay. I don't know, I feel like I need to sprinkle more. What is this that I'm throwing in here? I don't know. Pretty. There's just something kind of atmospheric about it that I like.
You're throwing in good vibes.
Exactly. That's what I'm doing. Okay, now let's leave the background alone for a minute. Let's put the center of my flower in. So I'm going to use Q burnt orange and a little bit of Q gold. I'm going to paint the bottom of the center of my flower using that. And then I'm going to take Q gold or cad yellow, whatever yellow you want. I'm going to do the top part. If you want the center to feel dimensional, the very top of the center of your flower should have a lighter value. So it's almost like light yellow, yellow, orange, dark orange should be the color transition just on that little tiny center. And I think I got some bleed proof white in there, which whenever you get bleed proof white mixed with the color, it's never going to go like as dark in value as you might want it to. So I'm just going to layer quite a bit of paint right there. Now I need to lift some up because I went too dark. I'm just kind of sopping up the green around my Q gold because I want it to be yellow, not green. There we go. There we go. That feels so much better. Okay. Now, what we want to do is we want to start creating the illusion of like depth and dimension on my flower. Looking at this, I don't know if I like how separated my petals are. I think later I'll go in with bleed proof white and kind of combine some of those petals because it just feels too sparse. I want my flower to feel a bit more full. Even though like I've kind of as an artist, I stopped caring about like the realities of whatever flower I'm painting. I'm just thinking of it in terms of the overall composition. So for me, it's just like, okay, this flower feels a little bit too sparse. I want it to feel more full. I'll do layers, but I'll do that later. What I'm going to do now is if I want to make it seem like this is a three-dimensional flower where the petals are coming out of the center, then you need to have another value where the petals meet the center. So let's say this is a white flower. So the white of the paper is going to be the highlight on my flower. So what we have to essentially put in now is the shadows on the flower, and that is what is going to create the sense of dimension. Now, how do you do shadows on white? You want to pick a neutral, and your neutral can be warm or cool. It doesn't matter. So you can do browns, you can do light greens, you can do blues, you can even do purples, like basically a really light value of a more neutral color. I'm going to go, you can see in my original one, I chose brown. You see that?
Hmm.
I'm going to see what it looks like if I choose blue. So I'm going to do a little bit of phthalo.
A little bit, because it's very bright.
Yeah, you want to water that sucker down. And let's actually add like, I'm trying to decide if I want to add like indigo or black.
Can you rotate it a smidge so we can see? Yeah.
It's like right in the center here,
Oh,
right here. I have some of this kind of like brown gray right here. Let's grab some of that. Mm, see what purple looks like in there a little bit.
you guys at home will
Okay.
be happy to know I now have 3 jobs at Let's Make Art. 1, to remind you to do the oath. 2, to remind you to put the hole on the top of the paper of the calendar. And my newest job, to remind you to water down phthalo blue.
Yeah. Okay, so I have this kind of bluish gray. I did a few kind of strokes near the center, and then I rinsed my brush, and I'm just going to transition that color out. Now, it might touch that yellow center where that yellow bleeds a little bit. I never get mad at that because honestly, it only adds to the painting. It's really pretty.
It's kind of true to character, you know what I mean?
Totally. You'll see a little touch of that warmth kind of through on the petals. Oops. And you can see I accidentally touched the background there. It bled in. It's not the end of the world. Things like that happen all of the time. Okay. We're going to dry this. And what we're working on here essentially is step 4. So I'm working on the flowers and the leaves, kind of shaping them a little bit more. Now, I will say that I feel like my petals got real wonky. So I'm going to go back in with bleed-proof white and reshape them. You want to make sure your paper is dry. You can use around 6. You can use whatever brush you feel comfortable using. And then I'm just going to kind of just paint right on top and kind of round out my petals. They just kind of got like crooked, like a gnarled almost. I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Weathered.
Weathered. They got a little funky. So I'm just going to reshape. Yeah, already that feels better. Now, because I did bleed proof white on top of this, I'll have to go back in and kind of re-darken the centers to give that sense of dimension. But the overall petal shape, I'm more happy with. And if you're looking at your flower and you're just like, okay, there's something wonky here, but I don't know what I need to do in order to fix it, then you can like grab a scratch paper and just like try a few different options on a paper to see like, okay, is it that the petals are too straight? Do I need to round them out more? Do I need to give them more texture? You know, you can like play with it a little bit before you put it on your painting. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do some like foreground stems or some greenery that's a lighter value. So I'm going to take my bleed proof white. I'm going to mix it with some greens and I'm going to do like this stem here. Now, there are some watercolorists that are anti-bleed proof white. Can't be me, but everyone has a right to their own thing. So if you wanted to, you could mask off this area and use masking fluid. You could have painted around all of these steps and like painted around all the sections. So it's like negative space painting. Um, I'm not opposed to using a material if it makes it easier. And there are just some people that don't like it. That's okay. That is not me though. So I use this thing. And then maybe there's other stems, other pieces of grass. It's going to be really easy to go a lot with this. Don't make hair now, okay?
Okay.
Don't go crazy with it. So we did some light values, and now I'm going to do some dark values. So I rinsed my brush, grab some more green, and then especially in this kind of transition area, this is, now that my paper has mostly dried or totally dried, I can do some leaf shapes if I want. And a liner is really tricky to do leaf shapes with. You really can only get like long, thin ones. So if you want thicker ones, you can use like a round. Okay, am I getting to the point where it's hairy? Yeah, so I'm going to thicken some of these lines and turn them into just leaves. You might be like, what are these leaves connected to? Doesn't matter.
To vibes.
Vibes.
What are those dots? They're vibes. What are the leaves connected to? Yeah, pretty much just vibes.
That's how I live my life. Vibes only. Okay. And then this is where if you want to reshape some of these other flowers, you can. Again, I really wanted to create this sense that the other flowers or hints of white that you're seeing are kind of in the background, maybe a little bit out of focus. So you don't have to spend a lot of time on them. Like people are going to fill in the information of what they are just based off the coloring. If you want to, like, if there's an opportunity where like this one is open but it's off the page so you don't see the center, if yours is more on the page, put the center in, all of that kind of stuff. These I'm going to leave. Those are like,
Are you gonna leaf them?
I'll leaf those. And actually what you can do too, because this is true to what we would see, is sometimes you would see grass growing in front of flowers. You see what I'm saying? They're like deep within the layers of leaves and stems and all of that kind of stuff. To increase the dark value on my painting, I'm going to do another layer using Undersea Green and Phthalo and Q Gold and maybe even Indigo or Lamp Black, like just basically a really dark green. And just on some of these sections, I'm just going to paint some of it in. And it is truly sections. If you look at a photo of layers of leaves, you just see chunks of value. And it gives it that, like, the shadows to create that sense of depth. Yep. And let's say you did a bleed proof white stem or something that just was too bright, that it's fighting with the white of the flower. Do a wash of green over it. No biggie. Okay. Now, I'm going to go back in. I'm going to redo the center on my flowers. because I lost it there when I did my bleed proof white. So again, kind of coming out of the center. And then I like to do that, rinse my brush, and then just blend it out. Okay. And then if you want to do some really gentle kind of detail lines using a very similar value to what we just did for the shadows, like let's say we kind of shape the end of this petal a little bit. Just the softest hint of detail. See how dark that value was?
Mm-hmm.
That probably is too dark. So whenever you go too dark, rinse your brush and just blend it out. And then you're going to add some lighter. There we go. That's light enough. And remember that your detailed lines are going to follow the shape of the petal. So whatever the petal is doing, that's what the lines would be doing too. So if your petal is curving this way, that is what your detail lines would be doing. And then I'm going to do one more layer of really dark brown at the base of my center, just to kind of increase that range of value. Like so. See how that made that pop?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want to do some texture dots on that center, like little bumpies, you can just try and keep it within a similar color as whatever you're painting on top of. Okay?
Right.
Okay, that feels really good. Now, the very last step that we're going to want to do is we are going to want to put in the water drops if you want it to look like it's raining. If you don't, you can leave it just like this. Like this can be done. Beautiful. If you want it to seem like there's raining, which I really wanted to do for April, then what you're going to do is you're going to take either a liner or a round two, like a small detail brush. I'm going to take some bleed proof white and I'm going to do a teardrop shape off of a petal. I'm going to be thoughtful about where I want this teardrop shape to be because think about gravity. Think about how things kind of collect. So you can do it anywhere within the flower. But for me, I specifically want to do it coming off the petal and wherever there is a dark value behind it because that's going to make it pop. So I'm going to do it right here as if it's kind of coming off this petal here. And I'm just going to do a little teardrop shape. Now the belly of the teardrop is where you're going to have a thicker white area. And then it's going to thin out back at the top.
Nice.
Okay. And then if you wanted to do like another one, you can. I'm trying to decide if I want it like here or here. I think I'm going to do it here because I don't want it too close to this other flower. So it's just like a little rounded edge with the bottom with a thicker white. You see that?
Love it.
That's it. That's all it has to be. That's distracting. So I'm going to cover that up.
It's funny that your brain fills in so much detail. That's just like a little white line, but I'm
I
like, that
know.
looks reflective just like water.
Yeah. Like that's it. That's all you have to do. And then maybe you want some coming off the stem, but I'm just warning you, like it's really easy to go crazy with these water drops. So like pace yourself. But maybe there's some kind of collecting along here. And sometimes you can even do just drops of glare to show that it's like wet, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And then if you want it to be like it's actively raining, not that it just finished raining, you would do small dashes throughout. Small vertical dashes. They need to be thin. And the reason why we're doing vertical dashes is we want to create this feeling like the rain is moving. I did like speckle in bleed proof white when it was wet for vibes. So that might like fight against this rain a little bit more, but it's fine. It's fine, you guys.
I say it's true to how bokeh works, you know what I mean? The foreground ones are sharp, and, like, the further away they get a little bigger, and then the very back, those are just really blown out raindrops.
There we go.
You did that on purpose, I think.
I did. Everything I do is with intention, on purpose, and I know exactly why. And I pronounce everything just correctly. Yeah, there we go. Doesn't that look good?
I love it.
I love how loose this is. I love that it's very much like make it your own. Change the flower. You can totally do a color if you wanted to do like a pink and purple daisy or something like that. You can switch up the type of flower. Basically, all you want though to make sure is if you want to do as if there's layers of foliage, you need to mix up the hues of green. So different colors of green. You need to have a warm, a cool, a dark, pure, all of that kind of stuff. And you need to have different values. You need to have a light green, medium light, medium dark, dark. You need to have all of those values layered on top of each other. And that is how you create the illusions of layers of lots of little things. Okay.
Alright.
I hope you had fun with this. I can't wait to see how they turned out. Now, one last note to help you guys. Watercolor calendars, and this is they're made out of watercolor paper that we paint on. So water is going to warp your paper. That's just the nature of paper. That's what it does, even watercolor paper. So, in order to help try and keep my page as flat as possible, I am keeping this taped down for at least a day. And then that way it has full time to dry, taped straight down. If I were to remove the tape right now, what it would happen is as my painting continued to dry, the edges would curl up a lot more. Okay.
Mm,
So that's why I'm going to leave it. But I can show you with this one, at least some of the projects that we have done. I think the only one missing from here is January. So this was our February calendar.
love it.
This was March.
Excellent.
And then now we have April.
My favorite one so far.
I love it. And make sure you write, I love Michael Cray.
Happy birthday, Michael.
Happy birthday, Michael Cray. Right
Yes.
here.
Excellent.
Okay. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you next week. And if you want these watercolor calendars, they're dateless. You can jump in and out at any time. We also released tutorials last year for this. So we already have a full 12 months up on our YouTube channel. You can find these calendars at letsmakeart.com. All right. Thank you guys so much. We'll see you later. Bye.